Yesterday, after I checked off everything on my to-do list, I decided to go ahead and wheel the engine out to the truck just to see if I could, and from there I went ahead and decided to install it. I was concerned that I might not be able to wheel it out by myself, especially in the muddy sand, but it worked out fine. I got the engine underneath basically my cherry picker, which is just a chain and a come along, and went ahead and hoisted the engine up. I live off-grid in the high desert of Arizona, and so I've been carefully building this engine inside my shop to make sure I don't get dust or rain or anything in the engine as I'm building it. And it turns out yesterday that the wind wasn't supposed to be too bad. And like most things on my frugal off-grid homestead, I kind of jerry-rig a lot of things like this cherry picker, quote unquote. And so just to be real careful, I threw a couple tires under the engine. You know, I'm using an old come along, and just in case something happens, the engine should fall onto the tire and not cause too much trouble. With the engine mostly assembled, I took paper towels and plugged any holes where dust could possibly get in, put the valve cover on, and covered everything with a t-shirt. I've painted the entire engine, and I don't want to scrape it up too much with the chain. And so what I'm doing is attaching the come along to the chain, lifting the engine up just enough to release the pressure off of the bolts that hold it to the engine stand. I'm going to remove those bolts, and once the engine is completely free, I can move the engine out of the way and hoist the engine up high enough that I'll be able to roll the pickup truck underneath the engine and then slowly lower it down into the engine bay. My shop has 4x4 posts all the way around, and I ran a 4x8 beam across the top of them above the engine, and that's what I'm hoisting the engine up with. Vevor sponsored these sandblasting cabinets and the engine stand to my channel quite some time ago, and I'll drop some links in the description if you're interested in them. I should have unspun my come along before hoisting the engine up, but after hoisting it up to move the engine stand out of the way, I noticed, the come along is a little twisted, so I'm going to go ahead and unspin that twist in the cable so that nothing bad happens. But again, I'm placing the tires underneath just in case something goes wrong. Hopefully it won't go too wrong. The engine's only a few hundred pounds, and the come-along's rated for like 5,000 pounds, and the beam across the posts could definitely hold that. But just to be safe, I'm going slowly, watching the beam, watching the chain, watching the cable, making sure that just nothing is wrong. I would really hate to drop the engine or have anything bad happen. So I took a guess and hoisted the engine up, what should be roughly high enough to give me clearance to move the truck underneath. My dog Malleus, he's a Kangal, and I often chain him over to the tree behind the truck for a couple hours while I'm working to keep him out of trouble. And what he does is he digs these huge holes under the truck and whatnot, so I had to fill those holes in and then clear the way and move a few blocks and just prepare, make sure the mirrors aren't going to hit anything, and prepare to slide the truck underneath the engine. I've graded the land around my shop and all my outbuildings so that rain will run away from them. And so as I pull it forward, I'm actually just moving the blocks forward a few inches at a time to keep it from rolling too far. Although it does kind of get stuck in the driveway a little bit. It wasn't exactly easy to move. As I got the truck closer to the engine, I noticed I just needed a few more inches of clearance to make sure that the truck would get underneath the engine. Just like when I pulled the engine out, I'd never done it before, and this is my first time putting an engine in. So we're gonna learn as I go. It was a little bit tricky to get the engine in just the right spot so that I could line the pins up in the transmission housing, and then just as tricky to line up the holes for the engine mounts. I'm just moving it so it'll match, see where the mounts are, right? So I'm just going to try to move it just a few more inches. It took a little longer than expected, but my biggest concern was getting the engine mounted so I could roll the truck back under the carport and cover the engine from the weather. Turns out that was a good idea.